This week, we have a reminder about what really matters. On the same week, we're going to be talking a lot about division in American politics. We also are going to be honoring those who choose to serve the nation, no matter who the president is. Veterans Day is Wednesday, so an interesting juxtaposition of the news. I'm going to give you a little bit about what you need to know as you start off a new week, and we're going to talk a little bit about election updates as well. So first things first, it's easy to forget that we still have lawmakers working for us, even though we had an election last week, and they're going to continue to serve for the next several weeks until the new Congress comes in at the beginning of the year. Now, we expect lawmakers to go back to Washington, D.C. before Thanksgiving. And one of the big questions they're going to be confronting is whether or not to figure out a way to pass an economic stimulus now or wait for the new Congress. We got a jobs report on Friday, and it did show that we're seeing still recovery in the job market, some job growth that was better than expected. But we also know that the economy has stimulus in it right now. And so the question is, do you do a stimulus again before the end of the year, or do you wait? And with so much unknown because of the pandemic, that's going to be a really big question for lawmakers to confront. Speaking of the pandemic, we are seeing some record numbers. I know you're seeing headlines on that. A number that stands out to me is more than a dozen states are seeing record numbers of hospitalizations. And Dr. Anthony Fauci said something interesting this weekend. He said that when you're looking at those who have recovered from COVID-19, about one out of four people are experiencing longer term symptoms. So it's not just the recovery in the immediate, it's the long-term symptoms that someone's having to deal with. We talked a little bit about brain fog, that disorientation that some people experience even when they're feeling better. And so that really raises a question about acute care and the need for acute care as well as longer term care. And healthcare is going to be an issue we're going to be seeing front and center in Washington, D.C., because the Supreme Court is going to be hearing a case on the healthcare law. And very simply put, what is going to be confronting is whether or not the healthcare law can stand as is. We're not going to get a decision anytime soon. We'll get it next year, but we do know that the pandemic is something that America is going to be dealing with even in the future when that decision comes down. So we'll be watching any developments or anything notable from the case when we see it on Tuesday. All right, let's talk a little bit about the elections. Couple things to know. We know votes are still being counted. We do know that there are legal challenges. We know that the state of Georgia is already doing a recount when it comes to the presidential election. And we also know that the media called the race for former Vice President Joe Biden. So we got a lot of news over the weekend. I want to talk to you about legal challenges specifically. So legal challenges are happening at a local or state level as well as in federal courts. And right now, there's a lot of legal challenges out there. Most of the legal challenges are dealing with what we would call election inconsistency. So for example, if one side says a poll watcher is not able to go in and observe vote counting the way that they believe that they should, that's an election inconsistency. I know you're likely hearing a lot of talk about fraud, right? Whether you're seeing that on the news or in conversations on this side. And what you need to know is that from the legal challenges that we're seeing right now, we're not seeing allegations of fraud in this particular set of legal challenges. That's why you're not seeing any specifics. You might be seeing media reports, you might be hearing things from your friends, but we're not seeing that in the legal challenges themselves. Now, the Trump campaign says we should expect more legal challenges tomorrow, so that could change, and that's definitely something to watch. In order for these legal challenges to change the results of the election, they would need to be significant, and they would need to happen in several states. And that is not necessarily probable from what we're seeing, but it's not impossible. And if there's one thing we've learned from 2020, is that what seems impossible turns out to be tomorrow's big headlines. So we're going to wait and watch these legal challenges develop. We'll see how they bloom, if you will. That's what we're kind of watching. Well, what's going to actually grow into something that's bigger, that we can dig into, that has details, so we can present both sides to you. By the way, on the both sides, one of the ways that we're tackling covering this election is representing both sides, Democrats and Republicans. And I've noticed this year that some think that if we cover President Trump or we cover former Vice President Joe Biden, that in some ways that's dangerous, that we should be taking a stronger stand about one or the other. Acknowledgement is not an endorsement. Acknowledgement of all sides is journalism. And that's what we practice here. The Electoral College will vote on December 14th. President Trump will remain the president until January 20th. We expect a lot of stories before then on the election and otherwise. But we will not censor different sides of this story based on media calls or how half the population feels or anything else. We're going to cover all sides of the story because that's what happens in a free society. That's freedom of the press. And that's what we practice in America. That's what we celebrate here. So ethically, I will not censor one side or the other. And editorially, why would I do that? I like you. I want you to know all sides of this story, and that's what we want to deliver to you. So just a quick note on that. On Veterans Day, we celebrate those who served America. Veterans Day started with the end of World War I, and now it includes, obviously, so many of our different conflicts. And I was thinking a little bit about this. You know, whoever the next American president will be is going to confront a challenge that has bedeviled Democrats and Republicans alike. And that is Afghanistan, America's longest war. We haven't talked a lot about that, but I'm going to be looking into it this week to see if there's anything that we should really take note of before the end of the year. So I'll be looking into that. What stories would you like to hear more about? Questions, comments, let me know. And as always, more on smarternews.com. Have a great week, guys.